Talking to some of the best names in contemporary Christian music. This is the Hope FM Artist Interview.
Hey, Leslie, how you doing?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
Very well, very well. Welcome to the show. Thank you for sparing time to tell us a bit of your story and share some of this music. I've got to say, this is going to sound rude. I apologise straight away that I sound rude. I couldn't with hand on heart say that I was a big Leslie Jordan music fan. Not that I didn't like your music, but in the run-up to this interview, I have listened to your EP a lot. And really, I have been mightily blessed by it, and I am definitely a super fan of your music. So I'd just like to thank you so much for your beautiful gift, and I'm hoping to get to know a little bit about you as well in this time. So, before we hear some of the tracks, do you want to tell us, or more of the tracks, I should say, tell us a little bit about your story, who you are, where you come from, how did Jesus come into your life, and music become a serious part of it?
Wow. Well, I currently live in Tennessee in America, and it is way too hot to be outside in the summertime here. So I'm currently.
See, in the UK, I'm going to interrupt for a second, but in the UK, we've just had our highest temperature ever,
I read that.
ever recorded. I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. So when I was talking and conversing with people in the States, I was going, yeah, we've hit, and I went, we've hit 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And they went, oh, that's not that much then.
Yeah.
So
nobody knows how to convert the Celsius to Fahrenheit over here.
So what's your sort of summertime temperature where you are?
Well, we hit 99 yesterday, but it was a heat index of 107 or 108. So I don't know what that is on the Celsius scale, but I think you guys were somewhere in the 112 Fahrenheit.
Okay,
Is that,
all right.
Is that what I read?
We were a bit hotter then.
You guys beat us. You've won the global warming race.
Global warming competition. It's the worst competition to win, but
no one wants to be in it, but somehow we've all been forced into it. No, well, I live in Tennessee with my husband and our son Judah, and we live on a little piece of land where we host retreats and songwriting gatherings. And our dream is that this would be a community space for artists and writers to come and rest and belong. And that's been a long time dream of ours. And so we're kind of every day we wake up and we're like living in our dream, which feels surreal. For the last 6 years, I've been a songwriter with Integrity Music. Before that, I was in the band All Sons and Daughters, and we toured for about 8 years. And I'm just really enjoying this season of getting to sit with artists and write songs with them, because I was on the other side of the songwriting space for a long time, where I was the artist we were writing songs for our band. And now I love being in that other space where I get to come alongside artists, help them refine maybe a vision or an idea that they have for a song, and birth that song. And I had a friend of mine actually ask me what a songwriter was, because she's an author. She's like, so what, like as a profession, what does a songwriter do? And I told her that. I just said I sit in rooms with artists, I hear their ideas, and then we kind of birthed this song together. And she's like, oh, you're like a song doula. You like help deliver song babies.
Oh, yeah, song doula. Yeah.
So quickly bought the domain songdoula.com. No, I'm just kidding. But I did have that. It was that aha moment for me that I love walking alongside artists and helping them birth those things. And it's been a real gift for me. And so, this season of my life now, releasing these songs as kind of flipping the coin maybe back to the other side, being the artist a little bit. But these songs actually existed previously on other records. So they are songs that I wrote with friends that went on their records and have already been released into the world through other projects. And those songs ministered to me and really meant a lot to me through this last season of my life. And so I thought a cool way to honor those songs, to honor those friendships, and to honor the season that I'm in is to record them in a new way. And so I call them old songs with new clothes on, and it's been a joy.
Within the States, I appreciate often there is a faith element that's quite common. For yourself, were you just always brought up in church?
Yes, yeah, I grew up in church. I would say, now recalling your previous question, how Jesus came into my life, I would say that Jesus was always a part of the conversation. But relationally, I feel like I'm still getting to know the person of Jesus, and I think that's what's so beautiful about our faith, and maybe the complex nature of someone who's raised in church. There's a lot that kind of hinges on making that decision, that meet cute, as you will, that moment of being introduced to God and accepting or believing or professing those things. But there's lesser emphasis placed on the daily relationship. And I've been married for 13 years, and I think like if all of the emphasis was placed on the moment that I met my husband, it would be a pretty like kind of a boring story, But I think about all of the life that we've lived in the last 13 years, and that's what's made our relationship be what it is. And so, I think responding to that question for me is it's multi-layered, because my relationship with Jesus, as it relates to my relationship with my family and the church and all those things, it's been a process, and it's been beautiful and hard, and all of the things of trying to follow the teachings of Jesus within the context of the church, and how sometimes the church can muddy the waters a little bit for who Jesus is.
Yeah, that's the trouble with imperfect people and a perfect God,
right.
I guess. But,
yeah, right.
I'm counting myself very much amongst the imperfect people, I should add.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
but
Well,
yeah.
and it's also kind of that, like, if we always base our opinions off of God based on what other people's opinions are, and in that same metaphor of like, if I only related to my husband based on other people's relationships with him or perspectives of him, that wouldn't be personal. So it's definitely been a journey, and I'm so thankful that was my foundation, that I was raised in the church, that I was able to experience those stories. But I'm even more grateful that I've had this kind of beautiful and complicated and creative journey with God in the last 37 now. So it's been a long time.
Well, that saves me asking how old you are, because it would have been rude to me to ask.
Yeah. I'll offer that to you. Yeah.
And how old were you when you first wrote a song that you recall?
Oh, well, I was probably 11 or 12. I started playing guitar when I was 9, and then I listened to a lot of country music growing up, and my parents, listened to music from the 60s and 70s, so there were a lot of storyteller songs, and that was kind of my natural inclination, was to write songs that told stories. And so, my first songs were songs about being a teenager, which are interesting and then not interesting at all. So,
And have you thought about giving those songs new clothes and releasing them as a hidden track on your
no. Those deserve to be in a dusty box in the attic, or recycled somewhere. No, yeah.
It's the sort of thing that probably you should make sure you keep a recording of somewhere to give to Judah, your son, at some point. How old's Judah?
For sure. He's 4.5.
Okay, we probably wouldn't appreciate it yet, but
No,
wait till he's a bit older. Okay,
Yeah.
so and with regards to worship leading, how did that come about? When did you first start actually being part of the worship team at a church?
Yeah, I was a high schooler, and they needed somebody to play acoustic guitar, and I played, and so I got kind of thrown into that role. And much like my relationship with Jesus, I just did it, and then all of a sudden I realized how much I loved it. I just fell in love with being a part of a community of people who sang together and figured it out together, and did that more through college. And then as I graduated, I started working for a church and leading there. And yeah, it's been a long time.
You talked about touring. Can you just tell us? So with All Sons and Daughters, did your husband Thomas come with you when you were touring, or? Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for a season he didn't. He was a kind of before and after. So he traveled with us for about 3 years, ran lighting and production for us, and then before that, he's been a teacher. He was a teacher by trade for about 12 years. And so he was teaching middle school. And then after that 3 years, he was teaching high school mathematics. So, but he's been out of teaching for a season. But that was a sweet and complicated season too. So being on the road with the band and your husband, and we kind of had 2 different schedules. But, we look back on that season and think of all the places we got to travel together. And it was incredible.
So and you did come to Europe. What was your favorite
Yeah.
place in Europe?
Oh man, that is hard to choose because we've been all over the place. Edinburgh, Scotland was just pretty magical. I would say, going down to Brighton in England was incredible. We visited Normandy and Le Mont Saint Michel, and they're just these like, incredibly exquisite places. And then also, I just love the wine country in Italy. We were there we've been there a couple different times in Italy. When we were writing for the Poets and Saints record. And then my husband, we flew to a show in Sweden, I think. And then my husband and I stayed an extra week, and we flew down to Italy for 5 days. And I'd go anywhere over there, honestly. There's a handful of places I haven't been that I want to go to. So all of it, can I say all of it?
You're allowed to say it. It's a very diplomatic answer.
Yeah.
So no one has been offended. I heard the Scottish listeners give a little cheer at that moment.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Edinburgh, so that's okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. And when you've been touring, what's been, if you don't mind me asking, the biggest struggle for you that you've seen Jesus help you with?
I am very wired for home and routine and my people. And so I think the road was hard for me because of what I mentioned before, that there was just this, like, you're constantly around new people and you're constantly in new places. And while that can be appealing and very fun, there was also this, it just started to wear on me. And so I found myself with a lot of anxiety. When we would travel, whether flying or being on a bus in the middle of the night. And so there was just a lot of stress around being gone a lot, and not feeling that comfort of home, that comfort of the people. And, our band, we're made up of a lot of our friends. And so that was always sweet. I always felt a sense of family with them. But I definitely really feel like I depended on the peace and the comfort of Jesus in those moments when I struggled through how am I gonna make it through this 2 week long run out on the road and have energy to give people every night, have energy to to be present in my friendships and with my family. And that was one decision my husband and I made a long time ago. I've seen a lot of friends do it effectively, have kids on the road, but that was one thing I said I just didn't want to do. And so Judah didn't come into our life until a couple of years after we came off the road. So I'm thankful for that, to have to juggle that as well. I know there's that's multi-layered to have kids on the road.
I've got to say, I'm very impressed with anyone who can manage it. So, but it doesn't seem like something that appeals to me.
Yeah, it takes a lot of help, and some kids are wired for it. So.
And you mentioned anxiety, which I think post-pandemic is something that an awful lot of people are struggling with. Have you got any tips for people who might be struggling with anxiety themselves, particularly people who maybe haven't actually shared that? In fact, listeners, I'm just going to say, I went to the dentist this week. This might be too much information. I don't know. I went to the dentist this week, and the dentist said to me, "Are you stressed?" And I thought, maybe a bit. Maybe, possibly. And
How did the dentist know this?
Because I have been busy grinding my teeth at night, and I didn't even realise. So yes, that's how the dentist could tell that and the dentist is right. There has been a certain amount of unexpected and not much fun stress in my life lately. Yeah. So, but I've got to make sure I just keep taking that to Jesus. So, have you got some good tips? I thought I'd share that I've been struggling with stress.
That's so great.
Do you have some tips for that you found helpful with stress and anxiety?
For sure. I mean, I would say I started going to therapy in 2016, and I had gone as a child through my parents' divorce, and then kind of swore it off. After that, I was like, I'm not going to do that. But I was a kid. I just had no idea. So I started going to therapy in 2016, and I would say that has maybe been the most beneficial thing for me, is to sit in a room with someone who listens, and that's their only responsibility, is to listen and to help you process through maybe life experiences that you have somehow shoved way down into the recesses of your body and your mind. And so that has been a huge gift to me. I also, went to my doctor and said, here are some moments in my day and my life and my world where I experience a higher level of anxiety, and she prescribed medication. And I know that that's kind of a touchy subject. But for me, I had medication that was for very specific instances, so that I, could function in those moments. And I started having panic attacks in very inconvenient moments. And found myself, there were just moments where I had to just lay on the floor with my back on the floor, looking at the ceiling, and that's all I could do. And so, I'm an advocate for all of those things, but I would say alongside of people and professionals who can help you get to the root of that and help you find the right solution. Because medication's not for everyone, although I will advocate and say that I think therapy with the right therapist is for everyone. And community, people who know me, that's been a really helpful thing. Being rooted and at home has been a really helpful thing. Reading, finding the things that bring peace. So there's a lot in our life that tries to take from us, and we live, in the States especially, we live in this very high productivity culture, and now with social media and there's a lot that needs us and our attention, or at least the illusion that it needs us and our attention. And so I would say find things that don't need anything from you. Find people who don't need anything from you, and people who you can be yourself with, and spaces where you can be yourself. And those have been yeah, lifelines for me. And I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, my life has evened out, and I have found that I've been given tools now through therapy and through some of those other methods of peaceful practices. Writing is always a peaceful practice for me. Those things now, my life does not feel as chaotic. It's about balance, and I think there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, and while we may have experienced emotional trauma or spiritual trauma or abuse or whatever the things are in our life, religious trauma, there are things that we may suppress, but our bodies will remember. And so panic attacks, I think, were one way that my body was telling me, hey, there are some emotional things that you have to pay attention to. And so if you just become a good listener to yourself, yourself and your body and your spirit will reveal things to you that maybe you wouldn't be able to know otherwise.
Thank you very much for sharing so from your heart. Actually, those are good tips, but also the fact you said there are times when you just are on the floor staring at the ceiling. That's not a great place to be.
No.
But to look at you now and to hear you feel like you've journeyed through a lot of that,
Yeah.
I guess is encouragement to people who might be right now in the middle of it, feeling like there might be no end, but to get to a place where you can find some balance. I suppose it doesn't mean that you won't struggle again in the future with anxiety. It's about getting those balances right, but it does give hope as well. So thank you for that. And now, though, can you tell us about where you're living now and The Fold? Tell us all about what is The Fold.
Yeah. So back in 2016 and 2017, started a nonprofit here in Nashville called The Fold. And our aim is to be a creative community for songwriters to find their original voice within the safety of community. And that's kind of a wordy way of saying a safe place for songwriters. And Nashville's a really unique place. So there's a lot of people who come here for music. I'm sure that's a common understanding. But there are a lot of people who come here with dreams and visions for what they want music and songwriting to look like in their life. And because Nashville is that eclectic place that has all these people who do music, there's a lot of people who may have opinions about what you do and how you do it. And so The Fold exists to be that place that doesn't tell you who to be or how to do it. We are a non-transactional space where songs can be written, but mostly community is experienced. And so one of the facets of our organization is this creative writing method where one of the trainers of the method, because I'm certified in this, it's like a 40-hour certification process to lead these workshops. One of the leaders, she says it feels very therapeutic, but it's not therapy. And so it might mimic things you've been in before, whether group therapy or creative writing communities. It's prompt-based, but what I love about it is everybody writes in the moment. There's this prompt that everybody responds to. We're all given the same amount of time. We're sitting in a circle. You can share if you want to, you don't have to, but if you share the piece that you've just written, everyone in the circle will say back to you what's strong about that writing. And that is such a unique approach to creativity, one that I've never been a part of before, because we're so used to presenting our work and someone saying, here's what needs work, here's what's not working, right? We're always given this, like, this is not good. And even from papers early on as a kid, right? You get something back at school and there's red pen marks over the things that are wrong. And so we're constantly conditioned to judge the things that aren't going well, that we forget to look for the things that are good and that are strong, and that are innate and intuitive within us. And so this practice really speaks to those things. And it's a tool that I love to give songwriters, to walk into a room and to say, you already have everything you need within you to do the thing that you want. And no person's opinion of that thing is going to shift or change who you are. It can shift negatively, but here's the thing, like, you have to trust that person and that voice that God has given you within yourself. And so that has become a mission for myself, a mission for my husband, our family. Like I said, we moved, it's not far from where we used to live, about 30 minutes, but it's more out in the country. And we have about 10 acres, and we host listening parties for people who are releasing records who may not be on a label. We host songwriting retreats and gatherings for local artists and musicians. And so that's the space we're growing. I say we're farmers. We have a bunch of stuff that was planted here before we got here that we're trying to keep alive. But if we're in the business of nurturing, I would say we're in the business of nurturing artists. So that's the world we're in right now. Yeah.
That sounds actually really quite fun.
It is.
I got to say, it's. I sometimes when I talk to people, they do talk, particularly sometimes when we're not doing the interviews, but before or after, more often after, about some of the pressure that they feel to try and always perform, or to reach certain numbers, all that sort of game. That's the pressure is piled on. You mentioned social media briefly earlier on, and I guess that's one. I've got an Instagram account, and I've never put a post on it. So so I've got numbers of people following me, but I just think if I start posting, there is a little bit of pressure I need to at some point, but I haven't. I've resisted. So
don't do it. Don't give in.
It does make it a really poor account. But yeah, it's one of those things where I guess if you're doing something that you're loving, and looking at you as you talked about it, it just sounded like you loved it. And the fact it's releasing to other people and enabling them to I guess bring out the gold is one of the terms people might say, but without it being forced out and changed into a shape that they didn't want it to be in. So that sounds like a wonderful songwriting process. I've not heard of it before, but it sounds good. And when you told me it's called The Fold, it sounded like it's going to be maybe an origami workshop.
Yes, that's exactly paper airplanes. So
yeah, but it's not. So okay, and. How often does it happen? How many times do people come on these retreats? Does it now, just for listeners at home, I suppose you might be listening to this any time on the podcast. It's July 2022, so we can't say we're post-COVID. We're living with COVID, or whatever. That might be the way to describe it. So you were doing retreats. COVID probably made everything go online. I'm going to hazard a guess.
Yep.
Is it everything sort of back open and working as you dreamed?
No, and that's part of the shift for us. Is we actually used to own a retreat space with some friends of ours, and COVID kind of shifted that for us. And so this new iteration of the dream is we're growing this property to be a space where retreats can happen more consistently. But because of COVID and just the nature of growth is that it's going to take time for that. So we've had a few retreats. And we've held them mostly outdoors, so we can't have them in these hot summer months. But we do. The listening parties have been pretty fun because we do those after the sun goes down, and we just have a host of picnic tables. There's a bunch of grapevines that were planted here, and so it feels vineyard-esque. So you're sitting out and watching the sun go down, and it's those moments when we have people gathered here. It feels like we're on the path toward that vision. And we're just taking the time that it needs to take to grow something that I was told when we moved out here. I had some organic farmers come and kind of give us a scope of the property. And we don't, we're not farmers. My husband and I, we're not gardeners. I had one like above ground garden 10 years ago and it all failed. And so it's been a steep learning curve for us. But one of the things that the gardener said to me, the farmer, she said, you are not a farmer of plants, a gardener of plants. You are a gardener of soil. You don't grow the plants, you grow the soil, and the soil grows the plants. So if you have good soil, you'll have healthy plants. And that has stuck with me in so many aspects of my life as a parent. Like, my job is to create healthy soil for my son so that my son can thrive and grow. And when I think about the Fold and when I think about the future of this organization, is I want to sow into the soil and make sure the soil is right and healthy and good, so that there will be lasting health within the folks who come through our organization. And so we're doing that with the time it takes to do it the right way.
And is it sort of an invite only sort of process? How do you come into contact with people to come onto your groups? Yeah,
so we have had open writing groups in the past, which are not songwriting. They're just that creative writing process. And the magic of that happens in person. So we've done them online, but it's just really hard. You lose a bit of that humanity when you're online, as you know. So we have stopped doing some of those open writing groups. The retreats have been invitation only at this point, because we're a newer organization and because we're so local here. But one of the things that we have myself and the board and some of the other leaders who are certified in this method that we've started doing is coming alongside other organizations and saying, we have this tool that we can bring to your church. We have this tool that we can bring to your label. We have this tool that we can bring to your organization. And it's a means for kind of opening people up to themselves and to one another and to God. And so we've co-led and co-hosted a lot of other retreats and community gatherings where we do this writing practice together. So that's one thing that we have been offering since COVID has become a part of our reality, is we may not host all of the things, but we can come alongside organizations who do host things and want a little bit more of what we do.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, we just said about social media. And now I'm going, wow, how hypocritical of me, because my next thing is to say, if people want to connect with you, where do they find you on social media, etc.?
You can send me snail mail at, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm anything Leslie Jordan Music. So that's on Instagram. Actually, I think it's Leslie Jordan ITS, Leslie Jordan, LeslieJordanMusic.com. But the Fold is thefold.us. So those are, you can email through that, and myself or someone who works with our admin crew will field those emails. So yeah, I am thankful for the necessary evil of social media and what it offers us through connection, for sure.
You've been watching The Artist Interview. For the full podcast, click the links below or visit hopefm.com/The Artist Interview.